Sam, you mentioned in your talk the importance of your business being a family business.
Yes.
And the triple bottom line and the balance between environment, social and economic. Could you just elaborate on what that actually means to you and how important it is?
Yeah, sure. I guess prior to changing to the holistic principles, operating under that high input, high stocking rate sort of regime, we just felt there was no balance. We were just constantly under a lot of pressure, sort of mentally and physically, just constantly sort of feeding animals, all that side of things. Whereas now we've got a better balance, so we put more emphasis on how we want to live our life. So family time is certainly important, but at the same token, we've got to be running a profitable business in order to sustain that too. So having that balance between looking after, I guess again we had concerns early on how we were looking after our land resource, and we felt that we weren't at the end of the day. So by putting emphasis back onto that, I'm a firm believer now that if we look after our land resource, it's going to look after us. So it's getting that balance between managing the land. It will help drive the profitability of the business, and we can not be quietly so heavily strung about what we're doing, and it provides that time to focus on life, which is what we're all here for. So with a young family, that's really important to both Prue and I. And just for our time in general.
So the rewards are there. What are the risks, or what are the warnings that you might give to somebody who's thinking of going into such an intensive system with so many aspects and so complex?
I think the warnings certainly for us were we were just getting a ever-growing sort of sense of pressure. We had taken on a debt level that we had made under educated decisions that we were comfortable with, but when all of a sudden the environmental side wasn't stacking up and we were running into tough seasons, it just started snowballing and falling down around us. So I guess the warnings were that, again, our land resource was being knocked around. We were mentally at a young and beginning stage of our career, we're finding it really difficult. The challenge or the inspiration to keep going was we could see we weren't going to be able to maintain. So
it's partly a cash flow thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's the other leg that comes with it. If we were making plenty of money doing it, well, then that certainly softens the other blows, I guess. But the crux were that we're, especially in the drought, I don't think with anyone was making too much money, but we certainly were in that category, and we just weren't happy with how we were doing it. And so, look, having now a setup where we enjoy farming the way we're farming means a lot to us.
Yeah. You get a premium. How aware do you think consumers are of the actual detail of products that are produced in a different way, in a more sustainable way?
I think without us educating them, there's very little awareness. Their knowledge is, and I don't think we can necessarily expect them to know if we're not out there telling them. The one big thing that we have noticed is the level of questions that we get especially from the city folk, who we in the past have, I guess, landed for this big gap between rural and city, and that they don't understand where their food's coming from. Well, I know that applies to some, but we have certainly learnt that there's a growing demographic that do know a lot more now. The level of questions that we get is really tremendous. And I wish every consumer asked me more detail about where their eggs are coming from and how they're being produced, because I know that we would all win then. And it would certainly also, I think, across the whole agriculture would just make people consider how they are producing their food, because at the end of the day, if the consumer's not happy, well, then there's not a market for it.
That's a good message. Thanks.